So what happens when the tax sale investment does not go as planned? Maybe you overlooked a massive lien. Maybe you found out the property's in worse condition than you had thought, or some other issue. What should you do now? Now, before we get started, if you are new here, my name is Casey Dimon. I've been investing in tax-defaulted real estate, including tax liens and tax deeds, for more than 22 years. Started at age 18 from scratch. I've gained loads and loads of experience that I use to teach brand new tax sale investors through my videos, podcasts, Tax Sale Playbook, and the Tax Sale Academy. So in this video today, in this podcast episode, I'm going to break down some common issues that tax sale investors face when things go wrong, and more importantly, how you can fix them. So let me start off by saying this. Every issue that we will discuss today, every issue that I see in the tax sale business all stems from one thing: a lack of education. The biggest mistakes that I see in this business come from people who rush into investing without fully understanding what they are doing. If you take the time to learn and you approach this business strategically, you can avoid just about every single one of these problems entirely. But if you are already dealing with a problem, do not worry. Let's go over a few potential scenarios. The first one is overlooking outstanding liens. One of the most common issues that new investors face is discovering that outstanding liens do exist on tax deed properties after they purchase. Now, these are usually going to be governmental liens, like code enforcement liens for overgrown grass, for broken windows, trash on the property, that kind of thing. Private party liens in just about every single state will get foreclosed out, but those governmental liens, those state, local liens will stay with the property and they become your responsibility. Now, what do you do? Let's say you bought a piece of property and it has a massive lien from all these daily fines that have stacked up because the previous owner threw trash into their lawn. What do? You address the situation right away. You solve the problem that caused the lien first. You mow the yard, you board up the broken windows, you clean the trash up, and also you don't just take care of the issue, but you document everything while you take care of the issue. Take before and after photos, save receipts, compile any proof that you have that that issue is resolved, and then approach the county with your documentation. Maybe it is the code enforcement officer. Maybe they have a city officer assigned to writing these types of tickets. Whatever it is, find out who's responsible for that ticket, for that fine, for that lien, and approach them with your documentation. Show them, prove to them that the new owner, you, are a responsible real estate owner. And often, what they'll do is they will reduce or even remove the fines for you. It's not guaranteed, of course, but it is worth the effort. And regardless, that problem has to be solved for those liens to go away, for the attention of the code enforcement officer to move from your property to the next property. So you have to clean it up. You have to solve the underlying issue regardless. So use that as proof that you're responsible and that you'll take care of the property moving forward. And a lot of times, they'll help you by reducing those fines or removing them entirely. And of course, next time, how do you prevent that problem moving forward? You always want to verify the lien status through title searches, through contacting the county, and figuring out what is wrong with that property. Drive by that property, and if you see notices posted on the front door, if you see notices posted on the property, that's a pretty big red flag. But at the very least, do a title search and go through county records to determine if there's anything outstanding. The next one, and this isn't more so a problem that you are trying to deal with, but more of a frustration that I see. And that is when properties get redeemed at the very last minute. I get it. You've spent a lot of time researching the property. You might have even fallen in love with that property. And you are already spending those profits in your head. But at the very last minute, the property gets redeemed from that auction. Suddenly, all that time, all that effort feels wasted. Here's a solution. Move on. First off, research the redemption rate history in that area. Some jurisdictions have massive tax sale lists, and 99% of the properties will get redeemed. So know that ahead of time. Prepare yourself ahead of time. But if you go there, last minute, gets redeemed, just let it go. There are thousands of properties sold every single day through the tax foreclosure systems. Don't get hung up on just one property. Move on to the next opportunity. To avoid emotional attachment, you need to have multiple opportunities in front of you. Don't rely on one property or even one market. When one property gets redeemed, that's okay. You're going to have other properties lined up. If every property in that market gets redeemed, that's okay. Go to the next market. Always have deals in front of you. The next issue that I see sometimes is the property is occupied. Whether it's the previous owner, whether it's tenants, whether it's squatters, you find somebody living in the property. That can be an unexpected headache and an unexpected surprise. The solution is this. First off, this should rarely come as a surprise to you. You should have done your due diligence ahead of time. Drive by the property, hire a local scout to check it out beforehand so you know what you're getting yourself into. If that property is occupied, approach the situation head on. They are not ever going to just leave because you purchased the property. They said, okay, the property's been sold, we're going to move out. I have never seen that happen. Start off by first offering cash for keys. Pay the occupants of that property to leave voluntarily. It's faster and cheaper than legal action in most cases, and it can also help ensure that they don't destroy the property on the way out. Say, listen, I'll give you a few $100 if you're out in 48 hours, if you're out in 1 week, whatever it is, as long as you take care of the property on your way out. And oftentimes, they will happily accept that money. That way it can help them get a new place. Now, as a side note, what I do is I generally tell the occupant or the person that I'm negotiating with that I represent the owner. I don't say I'm the owner. I say I represent the owner. Naturally, I do. I represent the LLC that is the owner. But I don't typically divulge that I also happen to own the LLC that bought the property. And what that does, it allows me to have a buffer between myself and them and who they think is the decision maker. You're just trying to help them at that point. You're the person working on behalf of the owner trying to help them out by offering cash for keys. Now, if cash for keys does not work, begin the eviction or the ejectment process, depending on your state laws and what it allows for and what it requires. Once you have filed those documents, they will usually be served some sort of papers. Maybe it will require them to come to a court date. Maybe it will give them a certain amount of time to get out of the property. Once they receive that document, I'll go back and I'll offer cash for keys a second time, perhaps at a reduced amount this time, especially if the legal process in your state takes a long time. The mere act of filing that eviction or ejectment will help encourage some occupants go ahead and leave the property. Remember to be professional and to be cordial. By the time that you have bought the property, the occupants have likely been living there for free for many years in a lot of cases. Be firm, but be kind. Again, by offering the cash for keys process, the option to take cash for keys, it allows them to leave kind of on their own terms if they treat the property correctly. And then finally, if you cannot negotiate with them, allow the legal process to run its course and have them removed from the property. Now, take note, if you do have to get the law enforcement in your area involved to remove them from the property, there's a high likelihood they'll probably damage a few windows and destroy the property on their way out. So keep that in mind. All right, the next one. The property is in worse condition than expected. This happens all the time. You buy a property thinking that it's in all right shape, it looks okay from the outside, only to discover it's far worse than you imagine. Maybe it's been vandalized. Maybe all the wiring's been stripped. Maybe it's been left to rot. Whatever it is, it's in a lot worse condition than you thought when you placed that bid. First off, always assume every tax sale property is in poor condition unless proven otherwise. Most properties will be in poor condition. They're not going to be maintained. They're not going to have, new air filters and stuff like that every 60 days or whatever it is. Know this going into it. The mindset that the property you're buying is almost dilapidated will kind of help you avoid overpaying for properties that aren't in very good condition. Now, if the condition is worse than expected, of course, and you're not prepared to deal with that, consider just reselling the property right away to another local investor. Offer them a discount in exchange for taking on the repair side of that project. This allows you to recoup your investment very quickly and move on to the next deal. This is actually a strategy that I generally use for just about all my tax sale properties. I'll buy it, sell it to another investor, move on. But especially those properties that need major rehabs. You can start really opening a can of worms if you get into a property and start taking down walls and find leaks and wood rot, termites, all that good stuff. And a lot of times, especially for the newer rehabbers, the project cost is substantially more than they budget when they get into a rehab. All right, next one. Overpaying for a property so you're stuck with very slim margins or no margins at all. Listen, we've all been there. The adrenaline of bidding takes over and you overpay for a property. Now you're stuck with a property that is just not all that attractive. You have very slim margins or you might even lose money. The solution here is very simple. Sell it. Cut your losses and move on. Do not hold on to the property for years and years hoping that the market will catch up to your mistake. Depending on how bad your mistake was, it might never catch up, but oftentimes it will catch up at some point. But the problem is that the carrying cost and the opportunity cost that you will miss by having that money wrapped up in that property that you overpaid for in the meantime is going to cost you far more than what you will lose in the short term. You must stick to your original investment plan. If it requires taking a loss, learn from it. Take your L and move on to the next investment. The key is to not let one bad deal derail your entire business. Keep pushing forward. Learn from that mistakes and always have other markets and other properties ready to go. And of course, to avoid that in the future, you need to have discipline. Set strict bidding limits based on your research and be very conservative with your numbers. Remove emotion from the process and treat it like a numbers game. If it does not match your numbers, your maximum bid amounts, you don't buy it. It's as simple as that. The next one, trouble with titles. Tax sale properties usually come with title issues that prevent title companies from issuing title insurance. So without clear title, you cannot sell that property for full market value. And again, this is one of those things that you must know prior to your investment. You must have a clear strategy on how to deal with this and how it will impact your holding period, your holding cost, your margin, all that good stuff. But new investors frequently stumble into this issue. I did on my very first deal, and I write about it in Tax Sale Playbook. And I've explained it on this podcast and on YouTube videos many, many times. I bought a property, went to sell it. Title company calls me and said, this is a tax deed property. We cannot issue title insurance. My buyer walked and I was left trying to figure out how to sell that property. So here's the solution. First off, know your options. You can sell that property with an as-is title. Basically provide a discount off of the market value and sell it to another investor. Take your money, sign a quick claim deed, let them deal with the title issues and move on. It's a very, very common strategy that you can use if you find the right buyers to sell it to. Now, if you need full market value to make your investment work, maybe your margin just doesn't allow you to sell it at a discount to another investor. In that case, you will need title insurance. It is extra work, it takes extra time, it costs extra money, but it's necessary if you want to get maximum value. And we do this, of course, through suit to quiet titles and tax foreclosure certification processes in most scenarios. In the meantime, while you're going through the suit to quiet title, go ahead and try to line up a buyer who is willing to wait for the title to be cleared. That way, the moment the process is complete, you have an exit plan ready. Additionally, in the future, of course, determine your strategies ahead of purchase with title issues in mind. For example, a $1,000 property will likely allow you to sell the property with an as-is title and a quick claim deed. A $500,000 house, you're going to need to budget in title clearing expenses. So make this part of your due diligence and your strategy. Obviously, there's different strategies for every property, so learn what works best based on your objectives and develop your process from there. Here's the truth. These issues, and come to think of it, every single issue in this business stems from a lack of education. If you are fast to learn but slow to act, you can avoid nearly every problem that I've talked about today and just about every other problem that comes up in this business. The biggest mistakes that I see come from people who rush to start investing without taking the time to learn. Believe me, you have plenty of time. There have been deals every single month for the 22 years that I've been in business. and for the decades and decades prior to that. Invest in your education first. Learn what you are doing before you become trigger happy and start buying properties. If you do that, if you take the time to learn what you're doing, it will pay dividends for the rest of your life. That's all I've got for today. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Tax Sell Podcast. If you found value in today's episode or any of the episodes, please do us a huge favor. Please leave a positive feedback rating or positive comment on whatever platform you're watching us on right now, whether it's just a thumbs up, a 5-star review, or an actual comment. It truly means a lot to us and really helps us out in the podcasting and video algorithm world. And as always, if you're ready to dive deeper, make sure you head on over to taxsellacademy.com for the most comprehensive training platform that we offer. Hey, take care, folks, and make it a successful day. We'll see you next time right here on the Tax Sell Podcast. Bye-bye.